I'll start with something very controversial. Do not join college. They assume that if you go on LinkedIn, scroll through, you get a job.
How did you onboard your first customer? What were the challenges in getting the first customer? How did that work?
We always need a Mercedes, Ferrari, and a Hyundai or Maruti. My boy is around 8 years old. He does headfirst HTML.
Hello, and welcome to the fourth episode of the Hustle to Heights podcast by We Are Placed. यहाँ हम डिस्कस करते हैं एक्सपीरियंस लोगों की करियर जर्नीज, उनके सक्सेस पाने का तरीका और उन्होंने क्या चैलेंजेस फेस किए हैं। इससे पहले कि हम आज के गेस्ट को इंट्रोड्यूस करें, आप हमारे यूट्यूब चैनल और इंस्टाग्राम को फॉलो कर सकते हैं, क्योंकि यहाँ पे हम पूरे एपिसोड की छोटी क्लिप्स डालते हैं जिससे आपको बाइट साइज लर्निंग मिल सके। आज के हमारे गेस्ट हैं विष्णु सुब्रमण्यम। विष्णु जार्विस लैब्स के फाउंडर हैं, जो कि एक जीपीयू क्लाउड प्लेटफॉर्म है। ये प्लेटफॉर्म एआई मॉडल्स की ट्रेनिंग और डिप्लॉयमेंट को सिंप्लीफाई करता है। उनका गोल है एआई एक्सेसिबिलिटी फॉर ऑल। इस एपिसोड में हम डिस्कस करेंगे उनके बचपन से शुरू उनकी करियर जर्नी, उन्होंने टेक्नोलॉजी में कैसे एंट्री ली और इंडिया में हार्डवेयर स्टार्टअप बनाने के चैलेंजेस। ये एपिसोड उन लोगों के लिए बहुत ही यूजफुल रहेगा जो टेक्नोलॉजी फील्ड में है, स्पेशली एआई जैसी कटिंग एज फील्ड, या फिर अपना स्टार्टअप शुरू करने की सोच रहे हैं। आइए ये एपिसोड शुरू करते हैं और सुनते हैं विष्णु से। Vishnu, hi, and I am Vishal, and this podcast specifically is focused towards the young job seekers and students. The podcast's name is Hustle to Heights, where basically what we want to discuss is thought leadership in the field of like what has your journey been like from starting from childhood to like why did you choose the technology field, why did you choose AI, how did that shape up, what was your childhood like, and then how did that turn into what you are doing today, founding a company, and all the little things in between. Focus specifically towards, advising, or in a way, anyone who's listening to this can take something from it, which is some amount of like advice or just, someone who has been there, done that, telling them that this is the path that they have taken. So that is the idea behind this whole podcast.
Sure, I got it. You'll have a lot of controversial opinions in my story. So my father was a banker. So what it meant is I had to move from one city to another city every 2 to 3 years max, right? Which meant I was moving between Tamil Nadu and Andhra, different parts of Andhra Pradesh, right? So which made me flexible with a lot of people, and which also made me get a fail marks in almost all the classes, primarily because of the language. I did not understand Telugu, and I had to enter into a grade probably around 6th standard or something, understanding 6th standard Telugu and Hindi. When I was in Tamil Nadu, Hindi was not there. But when I entered into Andhra, Hindi was there. Learning two new languages at 6th grade was not an easy thing for me. And I was not a great at by hearting things. So my progress report till my 10th standard was always has the F thing in that. Right. Luckily, in 10th, some nice teachers decided that they should pass me in the public exam. I don't know how I passed it otherwise. So I finished that, and then I somehow joined SRM University for my engineering. The reason I joined SRM was a bit interesting, at least from my perspective. I did my schooling in one of the SRM schools called Nightingale, where the ratio of boys and girls used to be pretty decent. And in Andhra Pradesh, that was not the case. There were a lot of rules. I was mostly did my education in rural areas. I was hoping that there will be a lot of girls and probably get a girlfriend. Right? That's how maturity was there. My father wanted me to join EC. My mother wanted me to join mechanical. I asked a guy who was doing engineering, my sister's friend. He said IT is one of the easiest subjects to clear it. So that was the reason why I did IT. Right. This is what my academic career has been. But parallelly, my father, when he was working in bank, that's when the banks were becoming computerized. So he was supposed to learn a lot of computers, starting with Linux. So he had a book for him to study on Linux. That's how my introduction to computers got started.
Wait. What was your father's role? Like, why did he have to learn Linux if he was in bank?
Yeah, so banks were all manually operated when I was growing up. This was probably second or third
Okay.
standard. They were getting
Okay.
computerized, and computerization, we did not have. I mean, at that time, people did not have what should a bank official do. So they're all
Yeah.
expected to learn computers, and just like how we were given in, if you're in college IT or something, right? We are expected to learn C as the first programming language in our college.
Mm-hmm.
In my understanding, probably that's probably the dumbest way to learn programming. That's the best way to scare people off programming, right?
Yeah.
He was given a Linux book and he never went into computers in his life again. Of course, he uses the GUI tools and all those things to get the
Yeah.
job done. So my introduction to computers started that, and I used to spend some time in my dad's bank looking at the computers, but we could not. They were all put in a big room with ACs and all. You're not supposed to enter that. So I used to look from far, and I used to nag my father to get me a computer. Finally, I got one after I finished my 12th standard. In the meanwhile, I was not very much interested in schools, the way of education. So I used to spend a lot of time in browsing center and gaming places, which allowed me to enter into the internet space much before it became popular. To give you an example, I had my email ID in MSN, Yahoo. There was something called Love Mail, India Times, and all these things. And I used to play games in Cartoon Network. I don't know if people know it anymore, right? I used to do all these things. That was my introduction to computers, and I wanted to build a game back then. One guy told that you can build it in PowerPoint, so I was learning PowerPoint for some time. Then I'm searching for that guy till now. So that's how it has been. Right, joined college again. Felt college was kind of boring for me, so started bunking a lot. Got detained for a year, but then I figured out how to hack the college attendance system by managing certain things and spending most of the time in the library. There used to be good
This hack, do you mean like a personal hack or like some computer
there
hack?
are physical papers, so there's
Oh,
no way
okay.
you
There
can
was
digital
no,
hack.
yeah,
Yeah.
digital hack was not there.
Yeah, yeah. So the way
Okay.
you hack is paying your attender or making sure your class rep is in sync with you,
Yeah, yeah,
right? That's how you kind of make sure that attendance is not an issue anymore. And I used to spend most of my time in the college library or on my computer, which my father got after I finished 12th. And we used to have, so one thing SRM did really well for us, they invested a lot of money in getting good magazines. Ubuntu, Linux, a lot of variety of magazines, right? So I used to go through them. I used to try to understand what is happening. I got entered into Kaggle around that time, but it was all bouncers for me. Then, unfortunately or fortunately, I got a job in Wipro placements. I was supposed to be the candidate who will never get a job. That's how my faculty believed, except one teacher, but somehow I got a job. Then in Wipro, that's when I started working. That's where I realized that the so during my childhood, right, we used to hear that Indians are really great in tech. Computers are like Indians are genius in it. I realized that okay, what we do is something called services. The foreign companies, usually the people sitting in the US, Europe, build products, and the maintenance job or small enhancements, we used to do it. Now I understand why we had to do it at that point of time due to a lot of reasons. But when I was doing it in Wipro, I did not understand. I was kind of pissed off. Like, why are we doing this? Why are we not building Google? Why are we not building these things? Why are we just supporting these guys? But economical standpoint of it all makes sense. We had to go through the curve. We had a huge disparity in technology and know-how of these things, right? But when I was in Wipro, that's where the challenge started. The high paying salaries usually get to the person who knows specific proprietary technologies, primarily SAP or HANA. There used to be these proprietary technology. And to get into these projects, you need to have someone in the project, or you should be lucky enough to get into it, which I was not. I was not that lucky. But what happened is during the same time, this was around like 2013 or something, big data started booming, and the entire big data was an open source space. So and the mobile internet also started picking up. I'm talking about the 3G connection. You pay 100 rupees, 200 rupees, you get like 2 GB, and then we use that to download. Hadoop used to be like 4 to 8 gig, and you have to sit near a window and make sure that you download this entire thing and try out this. What happened is I became one of the early adopters of these technology, which made me highly wanted in the job market, which probably if students or any job seekers are looking at this video, that's probably what should be looking at. uh, be curious, hack into the foundations, and then pick up something which is niche. For example, I used to go for Java interviews. There used to be like 2,000, 3,000 members line opposite of CTS TCS in Chennai. But the moment I got into big data, I was like getting job offers without me actually applying even for an interview, getting 100% hike. Whatever I ask, I used to get. So that's how the world changed. So big data, and then Spark came, and Spark had ML as a sub module of it. So you can run machine learning in distributed computers. That's how my introduction to data science, or AI, whatever it is called today, has happened. Then after my first day of marriage, TensorFlow got released, and I was trying to run TensorFlow on my Mac. I had an impression that Mac is a supercomputer, you can run TensorFlow. That's when I realized that, oh, Mac is not enough to run your AI models. So what I was running was MNIST. That's hello world of AI back then. Now things have moved into the application space, and if you run it on your Mac or that TensorFlow, you will see your Mac crying, literally getting super hot. That's when I started getting curious and started getting into the cloud space, renting GPUs and trying all those things. And from there, in 2019, started Jarvis Labs, which is a GPU cloud company. Uh, Based on the learnings that I had in the last 5 or 6 years on how complicated things can be when you want to go and set things on AWS or GCP, and how expensive it can be. My dream had been like, it's still a dream. When you most of the people who got into the cloud, they would have created their first cloud instance in Ohio. Do you guys remember? Right,
Yeah.
Ohio
Sorry,
is
can you repeat the last thing?
most of the folks who got into cloud
Mm-hmm.
primarily through
Yeah.
AWS, they would have created
Yeah.
their first instance in a location called Ohio. The reason is
Oh.
that's a default location.
Yeah, yeah, default location, just like it's US Central one for now.
Exactly, on the top right side, you will see that, right?
Yeah.
Mm.
So I was wondering, can there be a time where that becomes a location in India, right?
Mm-hmm.
With that dream, well, that's one of the dream. We started Jarvis Labs, and we are in that process. Now we are a little bit no name in the space. We are one of the fastest in terms of launch speed. We are making a lot of things easier, but there is a long way to go. Probably that's the shortest version I can probably put my story. If you have any specific questions, we can dig into that.
Yeah, sure. So I think we covered a lot in a single answer. So let's go back again to
We
the
can
specifics.
take it step by step and discuss more in
Sure,
detail in next
Again.
step.
sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you said, like, again talking about the students and what they should aspire for or get curious and stuff like that. So you said, like, you very quickly came to the part where you joined a engineering college. But before that, as you said that your father was in banking and Linux was there and stuff was there, but still, like, you have to choose science, right? You choose science as a subject. So why was that, and how was your years before that, like when and there was nothing, no computers and nothing at all? So how curious or inquisitive you were in
Yeah.
your journey?
So I believe that everyone is usually curious during their initial childhood days, till the time we are told by mostly both by parents and the teachers, don't ask questions. Right? We are repeatedly told, and over a period of time, our curiosity goes down. I believe the same thing happened to me. In my early days, I used to do a lot of experiments with whatever I can find around me, breaking the cars, the remote control cars, or the TV remote, trying to open it and see what happens. That's how my childhood has been. Trying to burn a toothbrush with on fire, pouring oil on the water. A typical childhood. After I started growing up, that curiosity kind of went down because there was no way for you to get your answers, right? Kids are usually curious, but today you have ChatGPT, Claude, Google search, even for that matter, Stack Overflow, where you can ask questions and you get answers. During my childhood, we didn't have that. It's primarily the books and your faculty. And your faculty are usually available for that 1 hour or 45 minutes period, and they're also jam packed, right? I would say till probably my 12th, the curiosity was slowly going down. uh, More of a monotonous job, but I think my curiosity towards the internet, because I was fond of playing games, I was trying to understand what is internet, uh, I mean, like, it's so interesting to actually see a hero image, right? To get a CD or a floppy and try to look at the CD. If you look at the CD, there are like different colors and all that comes, right? It's all uh, very interesting at that age. Now we take a lot of these things for granted, but that's how the computers kind of evolved. So computers had been a part of my life throughout my childhood. The reason why, okay, when I was in Andhra, when I did my 11th and 12th, that's where you have to choose either between biology or your physics, chemistry, or we call it MPC and BIPC, I think. Right? I took
You
MPC.
started from, sorry, like just to cut it out, like getting more a little bit more controversial. You started from Tamil Nadu and then went to Andhra, right?
That's right. That's right.
So
My
what
childhood
what
was,
would be your mother tongue, like Tamil or
yeah, I think it's
Telugu?
Tamil. I speak both Tamil and Telugu
Oh, you can
because
speak
I
both.
spent,
Yes.
yeah, yeah, I can speak fluent Telugu. I spent like probably 6 plus years in Andhra Pradesh. My seventh, eighth,
Okay.
ninth, 10th, 11th, well, 6 years in Andhra Pradesh. So
Okay.
I'm fluent in Telugu. I can read and write Telugu with all lots of
Okay.
mistakes. That's how it has been,
Yes.
right? So
Okay.
I was fond of biology, biology and zoology, but my father was a bit hesitant, probably because of two reasons I can think. That time, what the reason he gave me was I had a huge power, and his perception was if you want to become a doctor, then you have to study a lot, which is not really advisable since you have high power. That's the reason he gave me. But now thinking back, I am assuming since I was not a great at my studies, not great marks, getting a capitation seat at a medical college would be impossible. So I think he made his decision to put me to engineering, which was much more. Even that was expensive, but it was like way more affordable than a medical seat. That was the reason why I took max physics chemistry. I liked max physics chemistry. My issue never had been with either English or these subjects. My issue had been with more of the languages. Yeah, that also brings down to another question which I keep on thinking about, right? The education system is in a way that you expect the student to be in a particular grade, that what the grade translates to a particular knowledge. If that student does not have that knowledge, every year he's going to become poor at it, right? Like, for example, when I joined a school in Andhra Pradesh, I did not have the knowledge of Telugu or Hindi. So every year I became bad at it, right? So that's where I think that technology would play a bigger role. I mean, I don't want to blame the school itself because of the economic constraints a country has been for a long time. Even developed countries don't did not solve this problem. But I think with technology today, people with enough curiosity can solve this problem. Like, for example, my most of the education happened after I finished my engineering, not before engineering, right? And the most of the education was free. I mean, like, I would have paid, like, for example, for building Jarvis Labs, I had to learn how to code web application. And I did that with a $50 course with something like Code with Mosh or someone. He taught how to do React CSS and all. Then there was a $20 course on how to do designing. So it was like way cheaper than your schools or colleges, even
True. True.
to
Yeah.
today's standards.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. And then you talked about doing Java, like going for a technology which is very, very common in the market and then stand at the line of interest, right? So uh, at that time it was Java. I think to a certain level, like it translates to web development now. Like everybody is a web developer in a way,
Kind of.
right? And yeah, they are applying for it. And then lately it has been translating to AI engineers or AI developers, you can say. So what would you say, like, uh, at that point of time, you joined something which was very new, Hadoop, Spark, and everything, right? So what would you say would be the technology now to look into for people who want to do a little bit of different, something different?
Yeah. So probably if I have to redo it again, right, I would put more emphasis on problem solving, right? Uh, Build things rather than trying to learn new technologies. One of the common trend that has been is pick up something which is new, right? Which kind of works when you're not chasing behind it, but it also kind of becomes like a disease because there is a new technology. Even if you take UI, we use React, but there is something new every year. There's some new kind of deployment. Even in AI, there's something new in programming language, there's something new, right? But you can actually do a lot of things just with any simple language, just pure HTML, CSS, jQuery. You can build a product and take it a long way, right? So I would say try to build something. That's probably the best way to learn a lot of things which is actually useful in real world, rather than going behind a specific technology like web development. So web development also boils down, right? But are you good at HTML, CSS, JavaScript, or TypeScript, or fancier versions of it? But once you know fundamentals of it, it does not matter which language it is, right? You can be way more powerful just using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript.
Yeah. So, did
For
you
example,
watch the latest thing of levels podcast and
yeah, not fully,
speed?
but I have been following Peter Lel for quite some time. I know
Yeah,
he has been like PHP, jQuery.
yeah,
That's what primarily uses, right? He focuses
yeah,
on product, and one single person, I think he has got some freelancers making $3 million is like really cool,
yeah.
and that's
And
a
he's
good
like
example.
building things, just as you said that like you should focus on building things and problem solving and stuff.
That's
So
one thing I would say a lot of Indians should follow, because the cost of living for him, right, is way more higher. Even if you look at his podcast, right, in his early days, he actually moved to an Asian country to keep his costs low. If you're living in the US, without working and doing all these things is super difficult. Most of us have the luxury because of our culture. Parents take care of us till our graduation, most of the families, which means we can do a lot of experiments in that time, thanks to all this infrastructure laid out in terms of communication, 4G, 5G, and all. Internet has become like way cheaper in our country. Broadband has become way cheaper. So curiosity and your ability to solve problems, think innovative instead of thinking our economic constraints as a constraint. Thinking it as an advantage will actually take us a long way.
What do you think would be a good first actionable step in this direction for anyone, say they are in class 12th or just starting college? What is the very first actionable step that they can take in this direction?
Okay, I'll start with something very controversial. Do not join college. Okay, which mostly people will not do. I have a okay. My team, I think 60 or 70% or all the hires that we had after the core team did not do their college. They are at par or better than people who went for 4 years of college. Right? Just like you'd have seen a lot of companies say that we hire IITians, we hire NITians, blah blah blah. So I used to say for fun that we will say that we will not hire any graduates. Okay, this is a controversial opinion based on our culture where education degree is considered to be very important. Most of us will not do. So let's keep that aside. What is the first thing they can do? Look at platforms like Indie Hackers, Product Hunt, Free Code Camp, right? And pick up one simple product that you're curious or you're interested, and start asking questions. How can I do that? Don't think about the entire product. Think, can you make a hello world version of it? So whenever we want to do something in Jarvis Labs, so what we do in Jarvis Labs is pretty complicated. If you look at the whole thing, but if you, the way it started is, I do not know HTML, CSS when I started. I mean, I learned it as part of college degree, but no, it's not enough to build a product, right? So the question is, I asked myself is, can I make a box? Yes, I can figure out how to make a box. Now, can I put a text to it? Yes, I can do that. Now, can I make a backend call? And you connect all these things over a period of time. You look back, you suddenly realize you built something very complicated, right? So in the same way, pick some product that which you're interested in, and you have your entire 4 years of your college. Start building small things, and try to see if this product is actually solving some of the problems you face. For example, in college you have assignments. You may want to do some research, or let's say people are interested in programming, but the academics are not designed in a way it is easy to learn programming. Can you build something which makes it easier for them, right? So since it's your friends, they're not going to be very brutal on you. They could be giving honest feedback, just like Facebook. The way it started, right, it started for their university, then they started expanding to universities, and then they went outside. The same approach can be done. The simple advice would be, rather than focusing on your marks, try to have a profile where you say that I have these two, three products that I've built. Preferably, see if you can actually make money. So when you actually finish your final year, you don't need to go for a job. You're actually making probably hundreds of thousands of dollars. It may not work for everyone, but even if you listen to 10 to 20% of that advice, you are easily hireable, right? Let's say, for example, you go to placement, you have two people, one has got 95% marks, the other guy has built two products, but it failed to make revenue, but it's good enough to what they build in the company. As a company, I would prefer to hire the guy who built products rather than the guy who has got 95 percentile of marks. Yeah, I'd say use a lot of Claude and ChatGPT. When I go to college, the first thing I ask is, do you pay for subscription? 95 or 99 percentage do not use a subscription. And most of the times they use it for us to chat with their girlfriend or boyfriend or make memes or copy their exams or projects. That's basically using these tools to finish a work. The best way to use these tools is to understand how things work. That's where these become powerful rather than these becoming a bad thing.
Have you seen the V0 and cursor V0 and plot combination?
Yes, I made a recent video. I think we published one yesterday, which showed how to use Cursor on Jarvis Labs and build a small Gradio app. I mean, I've been using Cursor for a month. After Andrej Karpathy tweeted, I said I'm going to throw away GitHub Copilot. I installed Cursor. I paid for the subscription. I did not think even for a moment. Andrej Karpathy is saying that I'm not focusing on Cursor enough. I tried it like few months back. I did not enjoy it that much. I stick to Copilot, but now I'm to Cursor, and it kind of, even before Cursor, it used to be like more of interaction with Claude. It used to be ChatGPT at one point in time, but now it completely moved. With Cursor, what it does is you don't need to copy your contents, put it there, and those
Yeah, yeah.
small things easier.
But like with V0, like there was a video where a father was teaching his 8-year-old daughter. Like she was actually building an application just by her voice. Like she was just saying, sorry, she was just saying what she wants, and within 8 to 10 minutes, like the whole video is there, and she was able to build a very simple game. So when you said that now is now like a student should build rather than learn about a specific programming language or something like that, now AI has been enabling this like a lot, and using tools like Claude and ChatGPT, as you said, instead of doing the homework for you, you should start using them for learning, which is one of our motto as well. So we have built this interview platform right now, but we want to like scale ourselves so that we can create these platforms, AI platforms, so that everybody can learn using them, and they will become such such easy to use. As you said, Andhra Karpathy, right? So he started Edureka, I guess. Edureka is the name of his company.
Something.
Something starting from Edu, but it is for education only, to improve education, I guess. So yeah,
I'd also like to add one more thing that happens wrong in colleges, or I wish it was slightly different in colleges. Is the books we use to learn a particular concept, right? Is usually okay. I'll not name the subscription. Most of us would have bought that books as part of your college syllabus. One thing I've noticed is once you move out of college, when you're working, we don't use those books. Let's say I did not learn Java. I want to learn Java. Probably I would pick up a book like Head First Java, or something part of really or Manning, which are like project related. So that's also advice that I would say. Apart from the books, maybe you have to get your grades. You have to learn that. That's something you cannot skip. But if you want to really find understand these things, buy these books like Head First or books from O'Reilly or Manning, project specific books. They are really good.
yeah, yeah. At first is really nice. Yeah, I think I have learned Java from that. I don't know. Like at that
So
time,
I've
it
got
was
like
just easy.
at least up to 10 books I've gifted Headfirst. Whoever wants to learn Python in my circle, I give them a
Yeah,
Headfirst. My boy
yeah.
my boy is around 8 years old. He does Headfirst HTML.
Oh, nice. Yeah, yeah. At first is really nice. Uh, So yeah, moving on, let's talk about Jarvis Labs a bit. Right. You have already shared that you chose. Why did you choose a like GPU startup or a hardware startup? so to say. So in like we can talk a lot here, but let's talk about the challenges with a hardware startup. Like there are two challenges, two kinds of challenges. One is technical, and the other is doing a hardware startup in India. Let's talk about both of them. So yeah, please go ahead.
Got it. Uh, so I keep on thinking, if I had known the problems of running Jarvis Labs, maybe I would have never thought about this product idea
Started.
itself, right?
Okay.
So the reason I started is I was naive. I underestimated a lot of problems that we would face. I underestimated the state of data structure, data centers in India. I thought it will be all easy, right? But when we started, we realized that getting servers, getting the infra, even the cables, the network cables, it's not straightforward. It's not something that you can go to shop and buy. For example, let's say you want to buy a phone. You have Flipkart, Amazon, and your shops nearby where you can look at the prices and you know you're getting a best price and you can buy, right? But the moment you want to go for an enterprise server, the ones which we use, there's no clear pricing mechanisms. People do not have a clear way of what is optimal for this, and the delivery timelines are too huge. If you're in the US, you have a shorter delivery timelines because most of these are sold in abundant, so you can easily procure them. But in India, we have to wait for 3 to 6 months of time. Now it has reduced, I think, to 3 months or something, depending on the type of server that we want to buy. The delivery timelines are too huge. The second biggest problem that we faced was uh, we before we procured these servers, we spoke to a couple of data centers in India. There was one company in Hyderabad which said that they will do it for 5,000 per server per month. To host the server, they'll charge us 5,000. But then this guy, when we sent him the specifications, he said, "Boss, we can't support this." There were only two
Mm,
companies, Tata, I think, and Entity Data or someone, who gave us a
mm,
quote for 1.5 lakh for hosting one server.
Oh,
And if you're paying that much, there is no way we could run the company. It's a flop shot on
yeah.
day one, right?
Mm,
So there was no data center in India which had been hosting GPU server. The ones which we bought, the ones which we bought had like 8 GPUs in it. It's a 4U server. It takes to give you an analogy on how much power it takes. Normal household takes like 4 to 4.5 kilowatts of power, maximum power. One server takes that, right? So most of the data centers have a rack with power density. Power density is how much power an entire rack can consume. Is 7 kilowatts. That means the data centers in India can host only one server, okay, making it super expensive. So we have ordered the servers. So we have two options: throw the server somewhere or try to sell it somewhere, or take a big risk. So we ask the fundamental question, or the first principles as it is called: what does a computer need? Because the computer that I have from my childhood just needed fresh air, right? We didn't need a AC because there was no GPU back then. I know that we're going to have a bunch of servers. GPU kind of spits a lot of hot air. So I said, let's treat this as a POC. I know that things will break. So let's start with putting multiple ACs in a room. Let's put one AC extra to keep it cool. We try to get electricity from our local places. They were looking at us like as if we are trying to steal electricity and sell it somewhere. Because we needed, like, for a small place which we are in, we needed like 80 kilowatts of electricity. The electrical guys whom we called to work with us, they are like, "Are you guys crazy? You guys don't need this much. Computers don't need this much electricity." We had to get an internet connection. Broadband does not give you IP address, so you have to get something called leased line, and these are like super expensive and absolutely not transparent. The prices are like, when you're new into business, you have no idea, they give you a bomb. Then you have to negotiate. We agreed on to a price. We had to wait for 3 months because the guys in the company were suspicious that we were doing something wrong. Because they're like, why does a company in such a small place need a 1 gigabyte of connection? Right? So we had like these kind of crazy challenges, probably, which is something super simple even 5 or 7 years back in the US, because we saw some videos on the YouTube how to configure a 10 gig connection or a 100 gig connection in the US, which are like 10 years old. So I'm saying 10 years old now. It was actually 10 years back then, so it will be like 13 years old, right? The
correct.
cables, they used to go to shop and buy the cables. We have to order, we have to wait for a few months to get these cables,
Yeah.
right? So we had like a lot of these complexities. What was the other question? I forgot it.
So, like the two questions were the challenges that you face in India while building a hardware startup. So that is it, and the technical challenges. So both of them are in a way covered.
Technical
Mhm.
challenges. So this is also hardware related challenges, right? I
Yes,
think things
logistic.
are changing now. A lot of companies are investing heavily. Now the problem has changed differently. The reason why we chose to invest in hardware, though we know it's too super expensive, is no one was doing it in India. There was only one company, E2 Networks, which was also doing partially back then. They were not fully fledged yet. I think now they have changed their strategy. Now that they are investing heavily into it just because of all this hype, but no one else was doing it. So we had to invest on it, do it. Now things have changed. A lot of companies are investing. Now we are looking at partnering with these guys rather than buying them ourselves because it's too expensive. And H100 costs anywhere between 25 to 30 lakhs. So it's not something for a bootstrap company. So we are bringing in these GPUs through our partners. That's one thing. And in terms of technology, it was much more, it's equally challenging, I would say. The lot of know-how is not available in our country, or maybe even if it's available in small pockets. For example, we did not use Kubernetes. Kubernetes was the probably go-to for any kind of orchestration layer, and the reason we did not use Kubernetes was it was adding a lot of complexity to what we want to do. We had to learn a lot of things like how file system works, what kind of file system to use, how to make it optimal, how to move data from one place to another. And we had like a small network connection. When we started, we had a 10 gig connection. I'm talking about the private network, right? Moving data from one server to another server was a huge thing. So we had to solve all these things. It took us few years. So what you see today is probably the combination of 3 years of 3 years plus work.
True, true, true. And like, how did you finance all this at that point of time? Or everything bootstrap yourself?
Uh, it was my savings. I have worked for more than 10 years in the, I think 10 to 12 years in the industry. And one of my friend had pumped in some money, who was also director of the company. So that's how we started the company. We initially were hoping that we will be able to raise money, but then I'm a huge fan of Sridhar Vembu and Zerodha. So we thought, let's not trade our peace of mind for extra money. So we kind of remained bootstrap.
Do you have investment offers now? Like, do investors reach out to you, or
So in the middle, I was bit of cat on the wall. Should I raise? If I raise, I'll have more money, I'll have more freedom and all. Now it's like a clear no. When someone asks, I say clearly that we don't raise money. I mean, that's not my cup of cake. I wanted to focus on challenging problems. I wanted to be able to change my direction when I would love to. I felt like raising money is not my cup of tea, so I kind of stayed away from it.
So you're still buying GPUs from partners now? Like,
We were buying at least, I mean, the last GPUs we bought were like 3 months back. We
okay,
thought we'll not buy any more GPUs this year. Instead of buying, what we are doing is we are partnering with data centers across the globe, which is much
okay.
easier for us to offer the GPUs.
And like, sorry for this question. Maybe I am not right here. Technically, I don't know about it. So how then does it differ from a cloud service? Like, if you are just partnering with a different GPU provider, hardware provider, and then using that, then how is it different from a Google Cloud or AWS or something like that?
Yeah. So the thing is, uh, what Google Cloud offers is something way more than what a data center offers. We'll just put it like a ladder. The raw component is the server, GPUs, and all, right? Someone who sells it. And then data center is the second level of layer where you put this. And then there's a third level of layer where there's a software which has to be put on top of this thing for orchestration. Where what we were doing till now is we were at being the orchestration layer, the software layer, what GCP or AWS does, they had the software and the server layer. Now what we are trying to do is, since we cannot keep on investing money into hardware because Nvidia GPUs and servers have become super expensive from the time we started, buying them has become super expensive. Instead of buying the hardware, we are relying on other partners who have excess hardware,
Mm-hmm.
who have hardware which they are not able to, or they'll be able to sell it, but some part we are selling it for them, but the software is still ours. So look at it like a GCP, just that they don't own the entire hardware. Some part of hardware they lease it.
Yeah.
hmm.
Okay.
And that's what the difference is.
So,
I think there are good
so
examples like Heroku doesn't own it. Uh,
hmm,
I think there are a lot of examples where they don't own it.
yeah,
Model examples, they don't own it.
obviously.
Lightning, they don't own it.
Hmm, 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 hmm. Okay. And talking about GPUs now, right? So GPUs, obviously, NVIDIA is like investing and discovering and improving it a lot. But what do you think is the difference? Like, I don't know it personally, so I'm just asking you technical question. Where, like, what is the difference between a GPU or a TPU, and then the latest hardware companies which are like Grok, making it a lot more faster, and then now Cerebrus, which is the top of the level. So, how do you optimize the hardware for LLMs versus if you talk about a normal GPU, which is just doing parallel processing, more or less?
Got it. Got it. So I would like to take an example of PyTorch creator. I think Saumat Chitala, right? He made a tweet a few months back saying that unless and until these guys are ready to sell or allow researchers to test it, it's very hard to say if these are really good. Except for TPU, I think TPU and IPU, there are two plays which are at least available through cloud. But you cannot, you are like logged into their devices. Tomorrow, if there's a new device, you need to have a separate layer to do that. Right? Today, the market leader is Nvidia. They are like leaps ahead of the other players. It's not about just building the fastest GPU, it's also about building them in masses so that people can buy them and use them, right? Nvidia still has a problem of supplying GPUs even after having such a massive manufacturing through their partners, right? The other guys need a huge amount of investment and huge amount of know-how to do this, so which probably could take several years or probably billions of dollars of investment. So since these accelerators, we call it accelerators apart from GPU, I mean even GPU is an accelerator. The other accelerators are not publicly available. I would prefer to stay away from them. I think AMD is a good bet, which also fall under NVIDIA category, but there are complaints about software. But since we are a small player, we don't have the luxury to buy them and test them.
Mhm. I was asking about the difference, like how are they optimizing for LLM speed? For example, Grok is available now, like, and
Correct.
it's obviously faster than anything else which is there.
See, I'm not an expert at it. So the way I look at it is, does that speed really matters? What kind of use cases where it matters, right? And what is the cost you get? For example, everyone talks about however fast it is. They all charge you based on tokens. I was talking to a person from a company called People Plus AI, which is a non-profit organization in India. They are looking at how to use AI technology for making education and health better in India, right? So I was thinking about this use case. Let's say, for example, you want to support your students with LLMs. Let's say even you pick up something like 8 billion, you end up paying in tokens, and as part of RAG you kind of want to put your book or some part of the book and do for all your class students. It's still super expensive, right, since you're paying it per tokens. uh, so not for all the use cases the speed matters. And Grok is faster. Let's say, for example, ChatGPT, people are complaining ChatGPT was slow at some point of time, right? They were saying that Claude is way faster. But people, the one important point, the scale at which ChatGPT operates and Claude operates is very different. If you have noticed, Claude has become slower in the last few weeks.
Cloud has become worse actually, like in all aspects.
It's growing, it's becoming very popular, but it's becoming slower.
Yeah.
So does Grok also first question is, can Grok handle the load of what GPTs offer? I mean, what ChatGPT? I think they would be using something like Azure, I'm pretty sure they'll be using NVIDIA GPUs, right? Probably 90%, right? If Grok is so good, why would they not switch to Grok? It's not just about the speed which they're demoing. It's about, can they scale also? Do they have enough accelerators to scale? That's also a problem. That is that. So a small set of people would be really interested in those use cases. But again, they're all comparing with NVIDIA H100s. There is a H200 which already is there. They're not benchmarking, and NVIDIA improves the GPU every 2 years.
Yeah, yeah. They They are actually not following the law, right? They're not following the law. They are, like, making it faster and faster and faster.
There's also
Yeah,
another analogy which I keep on explaining people is, we always need a Mercedes, Ferrari, and a Hyundai or Maruti, right?
yeah,
They all have different set of things. Let's assume Croc in this
yes,
case
and yeah.
is Ferrari. You don't need
Yes,
Ferrari for all use cases.
you don't need value for horses. True.
And so, because we were talking about the company itself, so I just want to talk a little bit about the business side. Like we talked a lot about the technical side. So you faced a lot of challenges while building up, starting. We discussed all those. So how was your, like, when did you get your first customer? How was that experience? Let's talk a bit about how did you gain, like, what was, because this is a B2C platform, or right. How do you
Needs.
market that? How did you onboard your first customer? What were the challenges in getting the first customer? How did that work?
Sure. Uh, so we kind of so we started the company in 2019 December. COVID hit us in 2020. 2020, and we got stuck in Bangalore because of the border issues. E-pass 6 months went, which means I had to pay some of my core team members for the 6 months, which was the biggest setback for us. Being a startup, that is like probably the last thing that you want, right? Paying people without actually doing things. So we came to Coimbatore after spending 6 months in Bangalore doing nothing. That's where we had like a small YouTube channel. We were doing some Kaggle. I was participating in Kaggle competitions without actually building the company. Right, the first year went like that. 2020 end, that's where work started. We were setting up things in Coimbatore, the server room and all those things. 21 we went live, right? When we went live, we took almost 2 months or what, maybe 1 month or 45 days to get our first $20 recharge, right? Till that, we were asking people to try our platform. They were trying, they were giving us feedback. Okay, the where I was able to ask them to try again boils down to how I learned AI, right? Or deep learning, we used to call it deep learning back then, right? One of the places where my life changed is a course called fast.ai. It's a course by Jeremy Howard, and probably it's one of the best courses. A lot of alumni of fast.ai are in Hugging Face, Microsoft, Meta. Some people have built companies. They've done an amazing job. And he has a different mindset of how to teach and all those things, right? I would assume that you guys are already aware of it. So we had a forum where we all used to talk. I'm an introvert, so I did not talk much, but I used to make some posts. I used to help few people, very little, not much. So people know me, and Jeremy Howard also knew me to an extent because I was doing the course for like first year, second year. I was participating in Kaggle. From what I learned, getting good medals, and also he was also probably a little known to him. And he was very kind enough when I mailed him saying that I've launched this. Can you try and let me know what do you think? He tried it. He gave me some feedbacks, which we incorporated. I posted it on fast.ai forums, Discord, and other places. So we requested some of the fast.ai students who are my peers. I recommended you what to do in college, right? You ask your peers to come and try, and we offered it for free for the first. Whoever is in fast.ai, we offered for free for the first few hours or something. They gave us a lot of feedback, and one gentleman, probably from Poland, I think, he recharged our first $20, and he had been a customer for like last 2.5 years. That's how we got the first $20. We tried various things like product hunt. We started making YouTube videos, making tutorials, posting it on Twitter, other social media platforms. Participated in Kaggle. I used to participate in Kaggle, and then I used to change my name and put Jarvis Labs. Then as we grew, we kind of, so Kaggle is like a Olympics for data scientists. A lot of guys who need GPU actually come to Kaggle. So Jarvis Labs, we started back then. It was not like all people were running behind GPU. There was like a very small set of audience who are looking for GPUs, right? So we were sponsoring some of the Kagglers, saying that okay, you use our GPUs in return when you win a competition or when you finish it. Uh, Say that you use Jarvis Labs, and you can share whatever you want about us. We are not asking you to write anything good. You have something bad, tell us. If you don't improve, you can share it publicly. We are not stopping you from it. And some of them had been kind enough. They have posted that, okay, hyphen Jarvis Labs in their leaderboard. This all became our first, helped us with first set of customers. We were like so excited with product hunt launch. Uh, we were like, mm, awake the whole night. But that was a flop show. There were like a lot of flop shows, some good ones, a lot of challenges. The biggest challenge we faced probably is in 24. Uh, a huge companies have invested like billions of dollars. VC money has gone crazy. The price of buying a GPU has went up. The price at which you can rent a GPU has gone down crazy. It is actually way cheaper to rent a GPU today than it was like few years back. For example, when we launched, we were one of the cheapest or most affordable platforms in the world. My hypothesis was like we had like Paperspace, AWS back then. To rent something like an RTX 5000 or the equivalent of the card, you used to pay like 1.5 or something. So we started charging with $0.49. That was like probably one by third or something like that, right? 800 was something like $2.2 or something, which was also like 50% lower than other platforms. Now, with all the VC funding in place, the same GPU which used to go for $1.89 has gone down to $0.79. Right now, A6000 in NVIDIA in Jarvis Labs goes for $0.79 again. So the market has become big because of VC funding, and the printing happened in the US. A lot of free money has gone into buying NVIDIA GPUs or all the other GPUs. So they're all now subsidizing this. So that has become one of the biggest challenge. But again, I got to know about Dr. Velumani. He makes a lot of interesting videos, and one thing he says is reduce your profit margins, increase your scale. So that's what we are trying to do today.
Okay, okay, interesting. So I think you already talked about Jeremy. I wanted to ask you about him. He's like amazing and he inspired so many people. So this was my next question actually. Before Vishal asked you about the first customer, which I forgot. I actually thought of that we will ask you that because it's so difficult being from India and convincing people that use our hardware in a way, right? And
It's not
yeah.
actually that tough. We so there's also this thing, right? We never wanted to be a purely Indian focused market from day one. This is again from Germany. People think that Germany actually teaches deep learning, but if you go to fast.ai, he teaches how to learn, how to do business, how to think different, everything, right? So he has been telling that the guys who sit in the Bay Area, the folks who sit in the Bay Area, think they want to build product for the internet. He comes from Australia. He says Australians think different. They build for Australians. He says that's a huge difference between the culture between Australia and in the US. I'm not from Australia, but I know pretty well that we also have a lot of companies which are built for India, not for the globe. Very few, like Zoho, Freshworks. These are even for Zero, the Swiggy, Zomato. These are all for Indian markets, right? They're not for the global market. So we always wanted to be the global market. But somewhere in the line, people have been trying to corner us, saying that their GPUs are available only in India, right? Which I was kind of annoyed, bit hurt. The reason is no one said these GPUs are available only in the US, right? So how does it matter? The reason again we know that GPUs will work even if it is in India is you do a lot of model training and you do like latency, you do inferencing, and the majority of the time actually gets spent on the GPU. So it does not really matter whether you're using from US or from the Europe, right? And our users actually proved that hypothesis right. Our major
Mm.
80% of revenue comes from US and Europe, and they don't have any issues using the GPUs that is lying in India.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Obviously,
And one
obviously.
more thing which I wanted to add because I was talking about Germany is, and we are also talking about college education, right? So the philosophy of Paths.a itself is very different. So most of our education happens from bottom to top, right? We are learned what is torque, what is chemistry, different molecules, atoms, blah blah blah. But probably till we build a product or till we go and join a company and do something, we don't know what we are learning for. Why are we learning this? We don't know, right? He puts an analogy. He borrowed this analogy from another professor. I'm not sure what is his name, professor name. Basically, let's say you want to play cricket. what if Sachin Tendulkar, instead of picking a bat and a ball and playing, he learns about physics, velocity, what angle he should hit. Then he comes to the ground and he applies all these things after 12 years. Right? We may never have such an. So that's the concepts I'm applying to the college education. Start by building product. Then you know, okay, I need this. Let me go and learn it. You know why you're trying
Yes.
to learn.
Yeah, let's move on to OpenAI, or let's say the startup funding scenario, as we talked about a little, that the VC funding is so much that things are going there. So, like the startup bubble has almost burst in a way that now people are not giving money just for an idea. Like they are asking for the revenue as well. Like pre-revenue startups were a fad a few years back, a couple of years back, I would say. And now they're asking for revenue. How much revenue are you making, and what sort of multiplier are we giving you on that? So on that note, if we talk about OpenAI, so like that's the probably the most valued company, and now I heard that they are raising for 100 billion again, and the whole OpenAI drama from Altman and stuff. So, what are your thoughts about that? Like startup drama that happens outside, and how does it affect us, and drama inside
Yeah.
your company? Something.
Sam Altman is a business genius. His ethics, his marketing strategies are always questionable for the outside world. But for his company, what he's doing is probably the best thing he can do. And there are a bunch of smart people in OpenAI. Are they trying to solve the most important problem? A guy sitting from India, I don't think they're trying to solve the most important problem. Since these guys are super rich, they are trying to solve the problem of AGI. They actually complain that AJ is a problematic thing, then I do not know why they rush to build AJ. But again, they're all super smart, so maybe they know something which I'm not aware of. But in terms of technology, at least the core team, the I think a lot of core members left. For example, Andrej Karpathy left, worked for Tesla, came back, and again left. And well, even Claude, right? It's a spin-off from OpenAI with a lot less valuation, less investment, but a way better product. So Sam Altman was telling that AGI, with if the ChatGPT model is out, sorry, GPT-4 model is out, it's going to cause a lot of harm. Llama 3 is at par with GPT-4 or better than GPT-4, or par with GPT-4o actually, it's way better than GPT-4. I don't think any harm has, right? So it's all his marketing strategies. He's a marketing genius. There's no doubt about it. So let's not fall for his. So biggest thing he wants to do, or some of these big richy guys want to do, is they want to monopolize AI. For example, today if you look at it, search is monopolized, Google Ads is monopolized. I'll give you an example of what the biggest problem is monopolizing. We had observed that our foreign revenue has slipped for a month or two. Then I saw a post from Hamel, who's also part of FastAI. He made a course recently, very course on LLM, a very good one. He made a post saying that he was searching for one company and he got like 4 or 5 ads in front of it. So when I saw that, I was like wondering, is that also the reason why we are losing the global revenue, which used to be always at the peak? I mean, which used to be a growing one. So what I did is I kind of started switching. In India, no one was bidding. I don't know if someone watches this video and tries to do it. It's okay. We'll face it. So I switched to VPN and moved to different locations, and I started searching for Jarvis Labs. That's when I realized there are like 4 or 5 companies bidding for Jarvis Labs. They wanted the traffic to go to their websites, right? So ethically, it's not right, but Google has made it like a standard now. Even companies like Nike, AWS is like the de facto for cloud, right? But you search for AWS buys an ad so that AWS is on the top,
Yeah, true, true,
right?
true.
These are some of the problems that happens because of monopoly, and you cannot actually be in the top if something like open source is there, right? For example, GPT OpenAI would be much more valued if there is no Meta. If there's no cloud, GPT would be at its peak. Everyone has to believe what they say. So it's in best interest for them to say that, oh, we are doing for well, we are doing, if this is released, a lot of harm will happen, a lot of bad things will happen, uh, purely out of their private interest. right? So I would say that we should not give more importance to these guys. Again, why do these guys become important is when they say something, it's bombarded through the social media, right? Everyone says retweet, right? When they say something bad, when they say something which is good for themselves, if people stop giving a damn, I think their voice would be much lower, and people have to give more importance to people have been working on open source stuff. Again, this also brings down to another thing. The AI in which we worked like 3 4 years back was a very open field. People were open, people were teaching things. Companies like Google, Facebook, Meta were competing with each other and open sourcing stuff. The data set was public. Like you take at ImageNet, all the computer vision models that got right, all these companies may have their own private data set, private model, but the way they enhance this technology is saying that I use these techniques, I made these architectural changes, I evaluated on this data set, and this is the result I got. You can clearly evaluate it. But now things have moved into a very different way. Companies are starting to hold it, put all weird kind of licenses around it, or even if they're open sourcing it, it's usually for marketing purpose. For example, I don't want to name them. There are like one or two companies which kind of open source one particular model. They say we are for open source. We don't like proprietary. Go against GPT-4 and all these things. And then in the next versions, they kind of say, okay, we are still supporting open source, but you have to pay money for using this. You use more than this, then you have to pay money. All the images generated, all the text generated are owned by us, not by you. Whenever we say you have to give it back. So it's a tough time to be in. Again, this boils down to the VC money that went in, right?
Yeah,
The VC
true.
pumped in money, they want returns, and the founders,
They
even
want
though they best interest, they may not be able to do what is right.
So I think me and Apple, we have discussed this previously, and probably makes sense that like now things are beginning to get closed source, and data sets are not being released publicly, or even models etc. are not being released publicly, because now they have figured out most of the things of how to commercialize on AI. So earlier open source was basically driving innovation and speeding up that process, because commercialization was yet not figured out. The moment commercialization got figured out, probably that is when, and because VC money is so much there, returns are supposed to be made.
Yeah, I think it's changing in 2024, particularly because of companies like Meta. They kind of Facebook. It's Facebook or Meta. Okay, they kind of push the
But
llama.
Meta is not releasing the data set, and they will never release the data set.
Data set is a problematic thing, right? So one
Yeah,
person was asking me, why can't we do it in India? I was telling that there's a technical reason why we can't do it, because we don't have the know-how, but we can crack it, assuming that we have enough funds in place and enough bandwidth. Small set of motivated people, we will be able to crack it, right? But the biggest problem is our ethics come into picture. The question is, are we ready to trade off ethics? I don't think any Indian company, at least to my knowledge, had been complained about saying that they violated a lot of privacy laws, right? For example, when you wanted to ask me for a podcast, you said that you'll show me the video. If you're not comfortable, you'll make edits, right? But let's be honest, all these GPT models, they know about movies, they know about books without getting permission from these guys. I think we are ethical in nature, so we may not do that. So without doing that, can we build a model which is as good as these things is a different question.
not at all. That's why I think, I think it will never be the same for us or even any open source company for that matter. And I actually put this question to the CEO of Hugging Face on Twitter, and he replied that yes, we will be able to do it. But then I asked him again, then he didn't reply. But my point is that when you get big as OpenAI, or let's say Google, right, in search space. So Google can also search through all the data and everything. So then when you become this big, you get to collaborate with the government or coalesce with them. So they let go of so many rules which are there for the small companies or small startups and everything. But when you reach there, right? So now you must have heard that OpenAI is showing the model to the military, right? The GPT strawberry, let's say strawberry project, they are showing it to, and they have named it Orion or something. So they are showing it to the military, and then they will release GPT-6 directly or something. Lot of conjectures are going on. But at the same time, if you talk about, so Meta is not releasing the data set because they are the first offenders of privacy, right? That is why they cannot release the data set if they want to, if they want their models to reach to the level of GPTs or Claudes or something like that in open source, right? So they will not release that. So I don't think open source can ever reach that level, because the closed source teams and the companies will have access to lot more data. The only way they will reach there is when we have these models like GPT 6, let's say 7, or somebody else crack it, because now the limit of the data is getting over. As everybody is saying that there are two more, I think two more levels of scaling left in transformer models, and then we'll have to change the architecture. State space models are already there, I guess. So yeah, in my view, open source will not match closed source, at least for these years where there is this scale up is available and the data sets are available. So Sora is not yet released
I'll
and
ask a
things like,
slightly controversial question.
yeah,
Why do we need a model which is way more smarter and smarter and smarter? Right?
yeah,
In terms of usability, the models that we have today in the open source world, open weights, can do a lot of things, change a lot of things. Right? The second thing is artists and authors know their data is being used. There are a lot of cases that is going on. We have to see how the codes respond to that. If the codes respond to that in the favor of these companies, that means the open source guys can also train on that. So there is this thing. I cannot reproduce a book, but I can read a book and I can derive insights and I can put it in my own way. So the way these companies say is we don't actually give your image or your book. We just extract the knowledge from that and put it in a way. If these guys in the code, the companies which have trained the models, then open source can also do the same. That's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is once these artists know that okay, these guys can use they are for money, they can do a lot of contribution. For example, a lot of artists have contributed to SD model. Some guys have said don't use my data, but some guys have said okay, no, you should use my model, use my data. No, another interesting thing is Linux Foundation has also shown now interest in training these models. They also have seen the importance of these AI models, and they know that these cannot be in private companies' hand, and they have also invested. For example, there's only SD model. And Flux came recently. One part of it is open source. The other two models are not open, so which is far from their point of view, right? Business, they have to make sense. But it's important for other companies to have unlimited access to a powerful model. That's where ComfyUI, the guy who was working in stability, who built ComfyUI, came out. He formed an organization called ComfyOrg that now became a part of Linux Foundation. Now, PyTorch is also part of Linux Foundation now. It's not owned by Meta anymore, right? So that's
hmm,
where I feel that there is still a lot of hope for open source. I think
true, true.
2025 could be a lot different in the open source space than what it is today.
Yeah, and on that note, we are talking about regulations that the courts will decide, right? On that note, Indian government is sleeping on it still somehow, like the regulations, AI regulations. So, what do you think, like, what the government should do?
No, I think the government should not do anything, right? So, for
No,
example, see, whenever government comes into it, I have tried to get a power electricity to put a
yeah,
service in my office, right? I know
yeah,
how hard it is to get.
yes,
Governments should not interfere in technology.
yeah,
What they should do instead is, if people use or do bad things, they should penalize. Whether I
yes.
kill you with a knife or with an AI code return, which kind of uh, convinces you to die, I should be punished.
Mhm.
Right? It does not matter what technology I use. The syringe,
But
which is
then
very
again
important.
comes the question of platforms versus, for example, Twitter is a platform, right? So they are until now, like they were used as a, like they market themselves or treat themselves as a mediary between the media and the audience. Now the Indian government has changed the law, and now Twitter has to follow a lot of the laws, and they are actually a news, not just a news aggregator or a tweet aggregator. They are actually the actually responsible for what tweet is put out by any of the user, right? So similarly, AI will have
So these
this
are
question. Will
very
this?
dangerous laws.
Yes.
Companies, when you bring in these laws, the larger companies can always manage. They have the manpower, they have the influence over companies. Even if there is a case, the case will go for years. There's a penalty they can pay. What happens is the open source and the smaller companies get penalized. That's again who are asking for these laws. If you observe it, the big companies are asking for the laws. Look at example for founder of X, right? He was bashing OpenAI, saying that, oh, I wanted it to be open. I did not want to be in anyone's control. That's why I did it. Now he started XA, and I said, no, no, this is like so powerful. It has to be regulated. Once you put money, you want it to be regulated so that no one else takes your pie, right? So that's what the government should do. Ensure is there's no monopoly, so that whatever these guys are doing are publicly available. The second thing is whatever these GPTs can do, you can still do without GPTs. If someone, say for example, people built nuclear bomb when there was no internet, right? So what are these GPTs capable of building a nuclear bomb?
Mm,
I don't think
they
so.
will be.
The internet, the data on the see again, these are all able to predict the next word. It may appear smarter, but they're just fine tuned to do what is available on the internet. To understand it, you when you do deep work, right? When you do high level web development and all these things, these are super powerful. But the moment you start doing things which are not available in Stack Overflow or Reddit, they're screwed up. What they do is they kind of give you like weird ideas, 10 different ideas for you. Where you're stuck, you don't know what to think. These kind of gifts, but these don't actually really solve, right? These companies have put in the fear in people saying that, oh, this is something dangerous, so you should be very careful. That's why the regulations and all come in. Otherwise, just imagine, why would these companies want it to be regulated when they don't want a lot of things to be regulated?
Yeah, yeah, obviously. Okay, let us bring it to the end. So, in closing remarks, like what would you like to say as an advice? Because we are mostly focused on students who can learn something from successful people like you. Like, what should be their journey like? Or one, if I ask you, what's one piece of advice that you would like to give to someone who is starting out in AI, not in AI, startup, not in startup. So, or we can define this as a different question like, how do you define success as, and what should we do for becoming successful?
Okay, I don't think I am successful, right? And I mean, it's a relative term, right? Am I successful than what I was 10 years back? Yes. Am I successful if I compare with someone else? Maybe the answer is very different, right? So let's not get into that part. But if you think of it, what is the advice that I would want to give to the youngsters is get ready to work really hard. Don't spend a lot of time on Instagram, YouTube. Be creators, don't be consumers. The creators, so again, one piece of advice which people take very wrongly is spend time on LinkedIn. They assume that if you go on LinkedIn, scroll through, you get a job. No. When you are a producer, that's where you get a job, or you create a company, or you build something, right? Be curious and be a producer, and don't shy away from working hard. There's a huge outlash when Narayan Modi said work for 16 hours. So there's a two set of people who are arguing against it. That can be misrepresented. If you can work hard for 16 hours or 18 hours, whatever is the timeline, on things that you're interested, on things that makes you better, it's very different. Then for example, I know of a shopkeeper who has been for like working for last 20 years for more than 16 hours. It's not going to change their life in the upcoming years. Their life is still going to be hard. But anyone who has been learning things, enhancing their skills for x number of hours, let's put x as a variable, right? Their trajectory is very different. They don't need to work that hard when they don't want to. It's a choice for them. They want to work hard, they want to enhance themselves, they can. So don't listen to people say that, oh, I just work for 4 hours a day, 5 hours a day. Don't, let's not copy the European or American culture, because these guys have worked very hard, right? The guys who built companies, for example, I always talk about the HubSpot founder. He says that morning 3 o'clock, oh, I'm building this agent. He's around like 50s, right? When he's in 50s, he's working so hard. What excuse do we have? If we
The
want to
NVIDIA
see,
Jensen,
He's
Jensen works so hard.
a
Yeah.
crazy guy, right?
Yeah.
Again, I saw one of his interview, and I give that as an example to my team members. When he was in the US, he says that I had to clean the toilets as a kid. I mean, like a school going kid, and he felt that whatever I do, I want to be the best at it. Right? Probably that could be the best advice for anyone watching at it. Be curious, work super hard, try to be the best at it. Don't compare yourself. Uh, you working hard is very important for this country, not just for you. If you want India to be a developed country, it's not in the politicians' hand. Of course, politicians have to do the right things, but it's in our hand. We have to build companies like Apple, Microsoft, Google. Don't try to be job seekers. We have to get away from that fang, right? We have to start thinking, why are not even one companies in India? Can this generation build that company? Instead of we trying to aspire to go and get a job, can we aspire to build that in India for the
Yes.
world? Think big, think big. uh, have higher aspirations.
Great. And what's next for you and Jarvis Labs? Like, what are your plans and roadmap?
So I think it's been 4 years or 5 years now. What we realized is we don't know shit. We need to do a lot, so we are learning a lot, we are slowly growing, we are doing a lot of research. There's a lot of work we have to do. We have to increase our marketing efforts, so this year we're going to spend a considerable amount of our marketing. We had made the product pretty decent, at par with some of what has been being built from the Bay Area, but since we don't have the VC budgets, we don't have marketing budgets, we have to figure out innovative ways of marketing. Once the money comes in, we make more money, we have to pump it back and build more products. We don't have a short term goal, but the long term goal is, can we be one of these companies which I just spoke about, or at least uh, try
Yeah,
doing
on
that.
that path or try doing that. Yeah, even if you
Exactly.
fail. Okay, thank you, Vishnu. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you all.
joining us and
Bye.
giving the valuable inputs. Bye bye.
थैंक यू फॉर लिसनिंग टिल द वेरी एंड। मुझे उम्मीद है कि विष्णु की स्टोरी से सभी लोग कुछ सीख पाएंगे और इंस्पिरेशन लेंगे। अगर आपको विष्णु से कोई भी करियर से रिलेटेड सवाल हो या उनकी कंपनी से रिलेटेड कोई भी सवाल हो, तो आप हमें ईमेल या लिंक्डइन पे मैसेज कर सकते हैं। इनफैक्ट आप विष्णु को डायरेक्टली भी लिंक्डइन और ट्विटर पे फॉलो कर सकते हैं। ये सारे लिंक्स आपको डिस्क्रिप्शन में मिल जाएंगे और इस समय स्क्रीन पे भी डिस्प्ले हो रहे हैं। मिलते हैं अगले हफ्ते अगली जर्नी के साथ। थैंक यू।